Should I start?
What I am supposed to?
No. What's up, everybody? I want to welcome you back to our channel. Today we're going to be talking about taxidermy and how to make or take the memories that go with harvesting an animal and preserve them, so to speak, on the wall. So we're gonna head over to my dad's place, and what you're gonna see is we're starting off with the bare bones. Basically, these were skulls that I had and racks that I just put aside because you get so busy in the fall time with us. We hunt for like good 3 months of the year.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times we just come home, we skin the animals, deal with the meat, and the racks go on the back of the woodshed because my dad's got a nice place there to store them out of the sunshine. And so a lot of these had a lot of junk on them, and you're gonna see exactly how we go ahead and clean them up and start getting them ready. No. Okay, so that's pretty much our elk. We left the plate a little bit thicker. It'll be fine. We're gonna be covering that up and making it look good. So that's that one. With this deer, I'm thinking that we're gonna cut this a bit thinner because right now you see how thick it is in this spot here. And what that does is when we go ahead and stick the little backing piece on here before we put the shield on the back, or the piece of wood on the back, it just makes it stick out from the wall a lot, and we want to have control over that, so we're just gonna take a whole slice off of this.
Once you get your skull plates cut to the right angle, then you'll want to clean them.
And what we basically want to do now is I'm going to be looking at them and pulling all the junk off of them. That way it's not like when we go ahead and put styrofoam around here for shaping on the skulls, it's not going to look like a bunch of junk. So I'm going to grab a pair of pliers. We're just going to go ahead and rip a bunch of this stuff off the skull that doesn't need to be there. So basically, just go ahead and rip all this stuff off. Cleaning it up, taking away some of the stink. See, it's nicely cleaned out all the way around. I mean, there's a few little tufts and stuff on it, but pretty much that's perfect. So we'll just put that one here. And this one's the gross one. So another thing that you can do is you can grab a propane torch. So once you get the skulls all cleaned up and that kind of stuff, then we're going to get into the backing, and this is where you design the shape of the end piece.
End piece.
This is where you're going to design the shape of what you want your plaque to look like. So what we use for the backing here that we screwed right onto the skull plates is OSB for the smaller animals. For the bigger animals, you're going to want to use something thicker, like a good proper plywood that's like 1/2 inch or whatever. But this here is shaped in whatever style you want, but we like the shape that we picked here, and you're gonna see what we do for that shape in the coming video. So what we're doing here is we've got a couple from another taxidermist, and this is one of my dad's, I guess, first muley, and I really like how this was all done here. and the shape of that. It's dimpled behind the back and stuff like that. What I'm gonna try to do is emulate that with my own drawing here. Go. Just gonna use a trusty old jigsaw.
So once you get the base cut out, you want to center your antlers up properly, and then you want to screw them on. And on the bigger animals, you might want three to four screws, so then it's stuck on quite well.
Yeah, on the little ones like these deer and the caribou, we only use 2 screws, and you basically, as you're gonna see, we put that right. We drill a hole first. You pre-drill the holes, and then you put your screws in. If you don't pre-drill your holes, you can split the skull, especially if it's a drier skull. You have a lot higher chance of splitting it. So you'll see in the process there, we're gonna pre-drill every hole, and then we screw them on down. So, I'm gonna go about here.
Okay.
When I was doing taxidermy, I was taught to use foam, and this is why.
It's basically why we like to use foam, and you'll see this may be a little bit of controversy in the taxidermist world about this, but the reason why we use foam instead of cement or different plasters and stuff is if these ever drop on the ground. Now a couple things could happen. Either one, you're gonna have your skull split, but if you have it screwed down right, a lot of times it won't. But what can happen if you use plaster or cement in here, you drop that on the ground or it gets hit hard, this can break up. And so that's why we use foam. It gives a lot more, I guess you could say, flexibility to the overall thing, the whole skull plate here, so that you're not having it bust up and fall apart down the road. So we're shopping for the styrofoam that we use for the mounts and getting the antlers set up. What we like using for the majority of the stuff is this spray foam insulation. It's big gap filler and it expands up to 3 inches for a bead. And this stuff here is really good. It's both sandable, paintable. You can basically do whatever you want with it. And we find it at a Home Hardware. This is in Canada, Home Hardware. And then if you're anywhere else, it'll be just a home building center that carries stuff for insulation, whatever else. This is what we use as the main product for building the whole antlers up and the whole mount up. Masking tape here, this is kind of like a painter's tape. And we put this around the base of the antlers. And why we do that is basically so that around the bases, when we put this spray foam in there, we don't want any of that foam hitting the antler because it's really hard stuff to clean off. And so by putting that tape there, it just kind of protects it. I gotta not get my wife here in the face. There we go. So now from this point, Abby's just gonna take the spray foam, you hold the can right upside down.
Oh, this stuff's different.
It expands 3 times its.
Yeah. So now that we got the foam sprayed on, we'll let it set and then we're gonna go work on our plaques.
We took those old skulls that we had, not old skulls, but old mounts that we had originally taken the paper tracing from for the plaques. And we've also copied out that plaque here on this wood. Now a little note on the plaques here. We use solid spruce. Now what you can do is you can use hardwoods, you can use pretty much anything you want. But we'll mention if you're gonna use plywood or anything like that, you're gonna wanna use a hardwood like a maple plywood or an oak plywood or walnut plywood. Something that's got a lot more stability to it and also looks than just your traditional spruce or fir plywood. Now for finishes, what we used on these ones here is we went ahead and instead of just painting these plaques, what we did is we took our torch and we scorched them. And now you're not going to want to completely like hold the flame on that. Just kind of go over it until it gets to the kind of the darkness that you want. And then what we did after that is we did put a coat of paint on or
varnish.
Yeah, varnish. And you can either get a spray on varnish or you paint it on. It's pretty simple. So with our littler animals, we use smaller plaques, and the big ones, for the moose and elk, I'm trying a little bit different stuff here. Now this is basically a piece of tamarack that we went and cut out, and you'll kind of see the process how I clean that up and make this basically a tabletop perfect plaque. But this is only going to be used for the bigger animals, and it's a little bit of an experiment. For holding these things up on the wall, what we've done is gone to a hardware store and you find these little like hangers for things. This one's a little bit smaller on these smaller plaques. And that's pretty much a piece of steel with some holes in it that sits on a screw. We're working at shaping down the whole set of antlers here, or not the antlers, but the mount.
The foam.
The foam on here. And basically what we're doing is Abby's doing a lot of the shaping because she's actually really good at it. She used to work with a taxidermist. And she's basically just using a sharp X-Acto knife, really good utility knife. And what we've done here, I'll just show you real quick on this other one, is we've shaped down this whole part so that there's like a rise in the middle. And then it comes to a point on the front, obviously, and then there's a spot around each of the bases to go ahead and tuck the leather in. And then we'll just let it play on what she's doing there, and you see the whole process.
To get a smooth finish, we like to use a horse rasp. And it's quite long and it just makes it nice and smooth, and you can control what shape you're making it without gouging in too fast or stuff like that.
You can get your horse rasp at usually any kind of Western store, place where you get farrier stuff. So if somebody trims a horse, ask them, hey, where do you get a rasp? Either that or you can use a woodworking rasp.
Or see if you can get their dead rasp.
Yeah, you don't need a brand new one. Like Abby uses my old dead ones because that's what I do. I'm a farrier. So. So what we used is leather to finish off these mounts and make them nice and pretty, and we chose leather over felt or different other materials because we like the finish that the suede leather gives. And where we find this is deer hide, and it's a bit stretchy. You don't want stuff that's super solid where you can't stretch it. I don't know if this would be cheaper leather or what, but what we find is that if it's got a bit of stretch in it, it stretches around the whole skull plate here, the whole shape really nice, and you can tuck it in. Plus it also has a real authentic look. Where we got this stuff, and you'll find this odd, is we got this at a dollar store. In our area, we got a lot of people that make crafts and stuff like that, and so our dollar store carries this. But you can go into if you're near a big city, look up places that carry leather, and you go in there and find some deerskin. Pretty much choose whatever color you want. So how we start the leather is you're going to staple it on one side of the head, either on the top or the bottom, and then you're going to stretch it over top of the styrofoam, and you're going to pull that tight and staple it on the other side. That way you've got something solid to start working with. Then you can go ahead and start working around the bases of the antlers.
So here I'm cutting around the base of the antlers just to make sure it fits properly, and you want to take small cuts because if you do too big, sometimes you can mess up the leather and it won't fit. So just take your time if you're not very confident on what you're doing. All you need for tools doing this is a butter knife, a stapler, and I use an X-Acto knife. And yeah, you just cut it about a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch bigger than
where the antler bases would be. And then from there, you'll find funny with a butter knife, but you'll see right now that she's using that butter knife to go ahead and push the leather in around the bases of the antlers. So once she's got that cut, rather than putting rope or anything there, what we've done is we've actually pushed the leather in between the styrofoam and that nice solid base on the antlers. It takes a little bit of time, takes a little bit of skill, but it's actually not that difficult once you kind of get your hands in there and start doing it.
So here I'm just tucking it, and I tuck it quite often around the antlers, and then I'll pull it tight and staple it to the board, but you're trying to pull it so there's no creases in your leather.
And when we go ahead and like have the seam in the leather, a lot of time what Abby likes to do and what she is trained to do and what actually looks good is to have the seam either at the side of the antlers or kind of behind the antlers. So when you're looking up at the antlers on the wall, you're actually not even going to see the seam, and then you overlap the two pieces of leather, as you'll see her do here in just a second. And once you're satisfied with how it fits around the base of the antlers and you've got it all tucked in there, what you can go ahead and do is grab your stapler and you're going to pull that tight and give it a couple staples just to hold everything in place.
So once I have it all stapled, I'll just cut the leather off and leave about a 1/2 inch around the whole board.
Once you've got your leather work done, what you can go ahead and do is screw the plaque onto your mount here and make it all look pretty. But then we've got one more step that you probably want to do before you go ahead and stick this up on the wall. And what's that? that is going ahead and finishing off the antlers. Now this can be done different ways, but what we've chosen to do is use Armor All rather than a shellac or any other kind of urethane to make our antlers look a lot more pretty. And then for making the antlers look good and not dull, what we were using, it's an Armor All Ultra Shine. I think it's totally reversed in the video, but it's an Ultra Shine. It's for the inside of your vehicle, that kind of stuff. Again, this is found in a hardware store. You can get all sorts of this kind of good stuff, but this is what we've found works some of the best for keeping everything shiny, looking deep colors, true colors, and also just, I don't know, a lot more eye appealing.
You can grab a paper towel or an old cloth and you just spray it on. And then when you get closer to the antlers, you'll want to just put it on your rag and then just wipe it on, because you can get your leather all sprayed. So that's what we like to do. So here we have the finished product ready to go on the walls. This you can do from home. You can take your time, pick away at it, and once it's done, you feel very good about it.
Yeah, and we're not taxidermists. I mean, Abby did work with a taxidermist when she started, but we used basic tools for all this stuff, like chainsaw to cut the antlers. We didn't have any fancy bandsaw or anything like that. Right down from utility knives, hammer, like all sanding stuff. Everything most people have in their garages. This isn't rocket science. This is stuff you can do right at home. It just costs a little bit of money for like the plaques if you've got to buy the wood for that, and then the styrofoam and some of your screws and that. But other than that, a lot of it's super straightforward. And if you work away at it, like for I think all 3 of these, if you put the time together, or all 4 of them that we've done here, it's maybe like a week's worth of 2 hours a day kind of thing, or less. For the 2 of us just kind of picking away at it. And so it's not something that takes a crazy amount of time commitment, but it really turns out good results. And then like I said, you end up having the memories every time you look at things on the wall. And that's really what I enjoy, is seeing these things up and remembering the stories that go along with each one of the hunts. It's a lot of fun.
So if you like this video, subscribe, leave a comment, and catch us on the next video.